Hello and welcome back to the Dicebreaker podcast. This is episode 42. Lolies isn't here. We've gone through, before we started recording, we've gone through the whole life, the universe and everything thing. That's what people think of.
So I looked up the bingo call in Loli's absence. I googled it and Google says it's do a poo 42. It says that in all caps here.
Is it actually that?
No, I've googled it, and Google, the CEO of Google, has emailed me with the result, and he says it's do a poo 42. That is official. Oh no, sorry, I've just realised CC'd in is Mr. Bingo, who of course is the CFO of Google, not the creator of Bingo. But there we go. So you're welcome. Got it covered, ladies. Cheers.
Great, yeah. Anyway, I'm Matt Jarvis. I'm here with Wheels. I don't think any introduction's really necessary now, is it? You've kind of introduced yourself in that.
Hello,
and of course,
it's me. I'm Wheels, and I'm in charge of facts here at Dicebreaker HQ. Head fact checker.
Michael Wiki Whelan.
Michael Wiki Wild West Whelan. That's what they call me.
Wheelsopedia. Oh. And silently dying of laughter is Alex Meehan.
Wheels, you can't do this to me. You can't do that bingo call and then reference Wild Wild West in the space of 5 minutes.
It was a triumphant return. I've not been on it in a couple of weeks. I had to come in swinging.
Oh, mate. Oh, yeah, I'm here. I'm here for the ride.
And of course, it's Matt Jarvis.
Yeah, I already introduced myself.
In charge of having to deal with this.
Rounding up the poo bandits.
Yeah, rounding up the cattle.
The poo bandits.
We are here to talk about board games. Would you believe it? And RPGs and all sorts of tabletop stuff. I feel like we should actually find 42 now, because otherwise we're spreading false information about the 42 bingo call.
What do you mean it's not that?
Oh, you are not going to believe this. Don't Google it, because I've just Googled it. You are not going to believe it.
I'm already
The
laughing.
actual bingo call is Winnie the Pooh.
That can't...
Very close.
Winnie the Pooh 42. That's what it says.
Is that because Winnie the Pooh is canonically 42 years old? Or...
Yeah, that's why.
I say this 25 episodes.
Robin has a bit of a weird context now.
25 episodes into this prolonged bit that continues to go. I am starting to question the validity of some of these bingo calls.
Yes. Well, this one's from WilliamHill.com. So...
known for bingo.
I will say that look out for the next bingo call on next week's episodes, because it's a treat. It is a treat.
Is it 43 do a P?
No, it's genuinely worse.
Oh, okay, right. Well,
but let's crack on.
Look forward to next week's episode. Yeah. This episode you might as well just turn off now. We've really peaked.
Enough toilet humour. What are we? A comedy with Will Ferrell in it? Come on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly that.
Will Ferrell.
Should we talk about board games?
Oh, right.
All right. I'll kick off with what we've been playing this week, because I've played nothing this week. I made plans to play an RPG, and that didn't happen. We were going to try and play Root, and then that didn't happen because I was expecting to play an RPG. I suppose by the time folks listen to this, we will have played Warhammer Age of Sigmar Soulbound, the RPG, but we haven't played it yet, so I can't say anything about it.
What it's like.
Other than I read through that book and went, wow, I really haven't played Warhammer in a long time. Well, I haven't dived deep into Warhammer lore, at least.
A lot has changed in the worlds. The realms, as they are now known.
The mortal realms.
The mortal realms. But yeah, there's a lot going on. But we're gonna do some cool stuff. I've made it a little bit spooky because I love spooks.
Whoa, spooks!
We're gonna be in the realm of death, which is the Shaiish realm, which is basically where Nagash is just like, give me all your souls. But yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Reading through that book, it seemed like every realm was the realm of death.
Yeah.
The amount of times the word ruthless and merciless was used in that book.
Fair comment.
Yeah, sometimes Warhammer often reads a bit like the lyrics of a band that, you know, became big in about 2004 and had gone by about 2005. Like, they just feel very of an era, of a certain kind of teenage angst a lot of the time.
The thing is, so there's like some fun things that you can like deduce about the people who write Warhammer by reading Warhammer, you know what I mean? Like, you can tell that there is obviously at least one person who works there who thinks Space Marines are really cool. And then, for some reason, people agree with him. But like, there's a part in the book that I was putting on the Slack channel when we were talking about it, where it has like, oh, here's like the average height of you know, the characters you might play. So, for example, if you're playing a Kurnoth, which is like a tree person, they're like 10 foot tall, so that's good to know. The Sigmarines, as we call them, or the Stormcast Eternals, which are basically like Space Marines but in fantasy, are 7.5 foot tall, and
they're just all wearing platforms. That's the thing. Like, you gotta...
A lot of them do. Only the female characters wear platform boots, of course, because you've got to have those combat heels. But yeah, like, it is ridiculous, like how tall they make their characters canonically.
It does feel just a bit like, yeah, we need to make them look tough. How can we make them look tough in an easy way? Just add an extra couple of feet to them. Yeah.
Just make it so that every time they go in a building, they have to crouch over.
Yeah. Which is weird because is it the Sylvaneth, the tree people? 10 feet is not that tall for a tree. I mean, particularly if you've then got humans who are 7 foot tall.
Yeah. Well, but then, like, the dwarves, like, the average height is apparently like 4.5 foot. So if a Sigmarine goes to visit a dwarf, that's like going, you know, it's like when Gandalf turns up to the Hobbit house and he's just constantly giving him back pain, so he's having to like completely loom over everywhere he's going. It just seems a bit ridiculous. But there you go. That's the fun thing about Warhammer, is that with every aspect of itself that it tries to take seriously, it makes it even more funny.
Oh yeah, I was sat there, imagine me with my reading glasses on, just looking through all this lore and reading about the different archetypes, just being like, oh, sorry, what was that again? And just like, I've never felt so just confused and baffled, but also like somewhat intrigued by what I was reading. But we'll see.
I
do
how
like
it play.
that for the elves, they just add an A to elf.
Well, because they literally they kind of did Age of Sigmar because they wanted to have control over the IPs, right? So when they just had like orcs and elves, it was kind of public domainy because it was just like, that's just a thing that everyone knows. But they can copyright the term elves.
Yeah, this is like Games Workshop's dogged pursuit of the term Space Marines, which, yeah,
they didn't even use the special AE. They could have used that. Many people fancy it.
Amber in Keyforge.
Yeah,
and then everyone would go, is it elves or is it elves?
Elves.
Because nobody knows whether it's amber or ember, it seems, for Keyforge.
It's Amber. That's why.
Amber.
Aimbot. I don't know.
Anyway.
Sorry. There's a very small fly buzzing around me at the moment.
That's the Games Workshop drone.
Yeah, you're about to be hit with a cease and desist.
Games Workshop, if you're listening in on me, to get an idea of what people think of Warhammer products, you've come to exactly the wrong place, mate, because I have no idea about any of it. You know, bad show, I guess.
All right, anyway, that's what I've not been playing. What have Meehan, let's go to you. What have you been playing this week?
Did you say woof?
Woof. I didn't say woof.
Woof woof dog. What you been playing, man?
He said woof, and I was like, well, what's going on? I have been playing Pandemic Legacy Season 1. It seems I've been playing that game for over a year now, maybe.
You have in
real
life.
Yeah. We're just taking our time with it, as it were. We're both busy people, so trying to, find time to play the game together is sometimes a bit difficult. But I think we've made it past July now, and it was the closest month yet. We were very close to losing the game. We've not lost I think we only lost 1 month, and that was one of the first few months. So we were sat there, and things were looking pretty bad. And we were like, is this the game, punishing us for doing too well? Is it oh, finally your time of reckoning has come? You've been coasting, now it's about to get, hardcore. And because we were just getting, epidemic cards. I think we got 2 in a row. And then we managed to get through 4 epidemic cards, and there are 5 in the deck. It was looking very bad at one point, but we managed to win the month. Only just. We took a huge risk at the end. There was a very high possibility of us losing if we drew the wrong things. But for some reason, luck was on our side that time. Usually it's not. Usually we draw exactly the wrong card we do not want when an epidemic happens. We literally sat there looking at each other and say, okay, we cannot draw this one card.
As long as it's not this one card, everything's fine.
The probabilities of it coming up are very low. As long as we don't draw this one card, we're fine. And then my flatmate would just pick up a card and then just drop her head to the table.
This exact card.
And I'm like, I can't believe this. At one point I was laughing so much because it was so unlikely that it would happen, but it did. Just laughing and just, this happens to us, and somehow we've won. I'm still convinced we're cheating somehow. We're not consciously doing it. It's a miracle that we're managing to win this often, but it's getting really good. We reached a new mechanic with the month we've just done, and I think it's going to continue. And it still surprises me how much the game continues to evolve, even though we're over halfway through. And there's a little bit of narrative there, sort of. It's good, yeah. And so, as soon as we finish season 1, we can play Jaws of Life and take 3 years on that. That's what I've been playing. No Root this week, so I can't chastise Matt Jarvis about...
No Scythe update.
Yeah. No Scythe update either. Been a while since I played Scythe, yeah. Who knows? We might get a comeback. What about you, Mr. Whelan?
Well, literally yesterday, myself and Johnny recorded a Let's Play of a new card game that I believe came out this year, that Matt will probably know.
I think it came out late last year.
Maybe last year. But it's kind of been sort of very easy to spot right now because it's been on the front page of Tabletop Sim. Every time you open up Tabletop Sim on the main menu, it's like, check out Din. Din's real good. And then Johnny said, oh, by the way, the devs from Din said that they'd be happy to give us a little hand with a playthrough, by the way. And I was like, oh, that sounds fantastic. Let's give it a go. And Din is brilliant. It's really, really good. We were immediately... So we did a sort of trial run playthrough where I was playing against... So we had the lead designer Gabriel on with us, and I was playing against Gabriel as he was just sort of showing us the rules. And we picked it up in a couple of minutes. It's really, really simple. You have a deck that's full of heroes, equipment, and actions, basically. So you both play a hero at the start of the round. The hero has a power level. If at the end of the round you have more power than the other person, then they lose health based on how powerful the hero that they played was. So if you play one of your best heroes that you've got in the deck, it might be you lose all your health. If you play one of your middling ones, you lose half. You lose 2 out of 3. And if you play a slightly rubbish one, you only lose 1, right? So it's a risk reward straight away of if you play a really good hero, you're putting yourself on the line because you might lose in one go. But then all you do for a round is you just play 2 more cards, and you both play them at the same time. You both flip, so you can sort of see how. Cause I think it's based on poker, so it's you see like a run sort of like being built, and you're like, oh, okay, if he's going for that, then maybe they're trying to do that or whatever. And you just play 3 cards, and then whoever won the round gets to negate the damage, whereas the person who lost will take the damage. And if you manage to get them to discard all 3 of their hearts, then you win the game. And it's as simple as that. But it is really fun. Like it's got a lot of depth considering how simple it is. To the point where we were doing our little playtest game, and Johnny was like, Wheels, we do need to start recording. So I know you're having fun, but we do. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, no, that's fine. I was just lost in it because I was completely like, this is brilliant. It's got like a very sort of like catch-all theme. Like they haven't like created a universe or anything. So like I was playing the Beast deck, so I had you kind of have like legendary creatures and myths and characters and stuff like that. So Johnny had like a sort of medieval deck with like King Arthur and Mordred and all that kind of stuff. Whereas I had more like, I had like the White Elephant and the Kraken and Leviathan and stuff like that. I think there's a horror deck on the way as well for a bit of spooks, man.
Spooks!
And then there's also, what was the other one? I don't know. There's another one that's available at some point as well. So the decks are going to be more sort of like themes rather than
bingo
sort of
cool
factions.
deck.
Bingo cool deck, exactly. That one's coming 2022, so look out for that one. But it's it's really, really good. It's a very like it's quite pretty, like it's well designed. Everything is kind of like, apart from the rules text on each card, it's mainly just sort of iconography and stuff, so it's very easy to read. And you don't have to like, oh, what does that icon mean anymore? You just have to sort of match. So like, for example, each hero has, they're called attributes. So you have like these little circles on the card. So if you want to be able to play a card on top of that hero as part of your second or your third play, it has to match. So you can't play like a shield card unless the hero has a shield icon on them and stuff like that. But it was really, really fun. Like the decks were quite thematic as well. So you had like, the beasts were all about sort of like willfully taking damage so that you can make yourself more powerful. Whereas Johnny's sort of like medieval deck was all about like using equipment and being able to like cycle it out of your deck and back into your hand from your graveyard and all that kind of stuff. And it's really, really good fun. The workshop mod is well put together. It's free on Tabletop Sim if you want to give it a go. There'll be a link in the Let's Play description, of course. But yeah, really good stuff. Really recommend it.
Do you build your deck before you play, or is it just kind of you start with a deck and you're drawing and then just playing as you go?
So Gabe was saying it was a deck building game. Obviously we were playing with pre-built decks, but he kept saying it was a deck builder. So I think you can build your deck as long as they like match faction, because each card that I had in my deck had a little symbol on it that was like the beast symbol. Okay. So because you can only play a card onto a hero that matches a symbol, I couldn't grab one of Johnny's cards and shove it in there because it wouldn't match up. Pardon me. But I think I think from what he was alluding to, you can build your own decks. I'm not sure. But also it's one of those games where it's kind of, like Fantasy Flight call it living card game, right? Where it's like you buy a set and it always has the same cards in it for everyone, rather than booster packs and that kind of stuff. So if you buy a set, you'll get the same cards as everyone else does when you buy it. But yeah, that's available to play right now on Tabletop Sim, or you can get it on, I think it's called dincardgame.com or something, but I'm sure we'll have a link to that when Matt writes the description. Sorry, Matt. But yeah, I had a really, really, really good time with that. And I think it's... I always kind of forget how much I love trading card games until I play one. And then I'm like, oh yeah, this is brilliant. Which I had with Keyforge, and it's fantastic.
That's something that I've surprised myself with, because it's so intimidating. Certain trading card games or collectible card games or whatever you want to call them, they can be really intimidating. Like, I won't touch Magic, not because I'm against Magic, just because there's so much already there that I just feel like it's going to take me a long time to understand how it works. And even though there are plenty of ways to kind of get into it from the very beginning, I believe last year they put out some starter sets for people who want to kind of get into it at this stage. He's nodding.
Yeah, I mean, they do pre-built decks pretty regularly. Do you mean the jumpstart stuff where
That's
you
the one,
basically, they're like half decks and you slam them together? And it's like, I want pirates and dogs, so I want a particular game mechanic and rats.
Rats.
I couldn't think of literally any other theme.
Game night as well. We did a playthrough of on the channel, which is sort of like, here's some decks, shove them together.
Yeah, but like the ones that I'm kind of gonna go and enjoyed somewhat, like Keyforge, I like, and the Pokemon card game I surprisingly enjoyed. Like we didn't play a huge amount of it, Matt and I, but what we played, I was like, yeah, I can understand this. Like this isn't too much. Obviously, I think it kind of depends on the decks that you get from each game. Obviously, Keyforge is still fairly new, so there's not a huge amount of keywords to take in just yet. But like I definitely have there's a hunger for trading card games, or that kind of feeling you get from playing them. But it's got to be enough that I can kind of overcome nearly. There's a lot going on. Like that Yu-Gi-Oh! Speed Duel game we played.
It's a great game.
Yeah, Wheels is laughing at Yu-Gi-Oh!
Gamer!
But like full on Yu-Gi-Oh! Terrifies me, because that's like a pretty hardcore game. But the Speed Duel version that Matt has is like, okay, yeah, I understand this.
I'm convinced that the existence of Yu-Gi-Oh! As a real card game is just an elaborate joke that Matt has been playing on me since I've known him.
Let me tell you about XYZ summons. I don't know how to pronounce it, but they're spelled XYZ. There's also synchro summons, pendulum summons. That's where Yu-Gi-Oh! starts to lose me. But I got deep into Speed Duel and Duel Links for a while.
Yeah, but it's like massive in Japan. It just
doesn't seem very good. It's the other thing.
Well,
I think it's that thing of, like, I'm similar to you, Meehan, in that I enjoy kind of like the core gameplay of trading card games. Where they start to lose me is if I'm then having to spend, a couple of hours putting together a deck.
Yeah.
And, some people enjoy that. For a lot of people, that is the appeal of, you're crafting a particular play style and then you see it kind of play out. But I just don't have the time and it feels like a hobby in and of itself at that point. And that's not what I'm personally looking for.
And that was kind of where Keyforge stepped in, was like, hey, decks are already built, just buy a new deck, friend.
Just slam them on the table.
Grab it, open it, you can't change it, that's your deck. But I think, when I used to sort of pitch Keyforge to people to say, hey, do you want to try this out? I would say like it's really quick to learn. Like it's not a complex game at all. Which it's like, I think by our standards, where we've played a lot of these games before, it doesn't feel complex at all. Whereas Din it completely craps all over Keyforge for user friendliness. Like it's like, hey, here are the rules in like a couple of minutes.
Yeah,
because that's really all you need to know. All of the complexity is on the cards, and I love it when games have complex systems, but you learn them just by virtue of reading the card before you play it. And it definitely felt like one of those where it was like, I never had to learn what, I think there are keywords coming up in new decks, but like I never had to learn what like a certain bolded pieces of text meant by flipping over a rule book. It was just sort of like, I got the gimmick out of the deck I was playing just by playing the cards and being like, oh, this thing is more powerful based on how much damage I've taken. But the way that works is, you have 3 hearts and you shatter them and they go into your discard pile. This is more powerful based on how many shattered hearts you have in your discard pile. But these 3 cards here count as shattered hearts when they're in my discard pile. So suddenly I've got like 7 more than I should do, and suddenly it's really powerful. So I had a turn where I played I think it's the Leviathan, which gets 3 extra power based on every shattered heart you have in your deck. And then I had I was going up against Johnny's card, which was Mordred, And Mordred has a special ability where he already starts with quite a decent amount of power, but at the end of the round, he can choose to swap one of his pieces of equipment with the opponent's. So if you put down something that would win you the game, he could just be like, nah, that's mine now, thanks. And we'll just swap it out for something crap. So I had a card, and this was like, you know, the climax of the Let's Play. So if you haven't watched it yet, you know, spoiler warning. But I had a card that was basically, I think it's called like the Snake Flute or something like that. But it was essentially a +0 card. Like it did nothing for you, but then its power increased by every Shattered Heart. So for me, that was like +7. And for Johnny, it was like +0. So it was literally the silver bullet for dealing with Mordred that I just happen to have. But yeah, it sort of throws out the window a lot of the stuff that I think can really trip people up when they learn those new games. Like there's no hand limits. There's no like, you know, systems where you have to have like an archive of cards that is separate from you know, all that kind of stuff where it's like, yeah, they're interesting. You can do some cool things with them, but every single time you do this, you're adding complexity to people trying to learn it. Whereas their system was very much like, if it makes it more difficult, we just won't do it. So it was like, hand limit. Yeah, sure, that's handy. And like by the end of the game, I must have had about 15 cards. But literally their feedback from their players was just like, it makes it less fun. So they were just like, all right, we won't do it then. And that was the philosophy, it seems, throughout.
I really respect that, because it's like, we're not going to try and force the ideas that we think are cool on our players just because we want to, you know, try them out. Like, we're going to just, like, make something that our players have told us, this is fun. Like, that's a good idea. Keep doing that.
Because, like, I look at some of the ways that Keyforge balances itself, and it's like, they work, but they're a little bit clunky. Like, you've got the chain counter, for example, in Keyforge, which is basically, because the thing with Keyforge is you can play whatever card you want whenever you want, and it costs the exact same as playing any other card. You just play it as long as you have it.
Yeah.
So the way that they counter the cards being too powerful is they have a thing called chain, which is basically if you play something that's mega powerful, it ups your chain, which is like a variable that you have, which will tick down every turn. But the higher the chain you have, the less cards that you draw at the end of each turn. And it's like, that works, but also it's super clunky because you have to have like a separate little counter, and then you have to like, it's another step in your logic of like what I'm doing per turn, all that kind of stuff. With Din, instead of having a hand limit, it just goes, you can draw as many cards as you want. However, if your deck runs out, you just keep taking damage every time you can't draw a card. So it's like, sure, you can draw as many cards as you want, and then you've got all the options in the world. But if you keep doing that, eventually you will kill yourself.
Yeah.
And that is just
that
like,
as well.
yeah, fluid, easy. Like, because that's just a rule that they teach you anyway to end the game. If you're in a stalemate, whoever dies first because they can't draw enough cards anymore, or they can't draw a hero, or whatever it was.
And it provides,
really good. Really liked it.
It provides like a risk reward element of,
exactly,
you can draw more cards in the hope of getting something that you think's going to work for this situation, but it brings you closer to taking damage. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, sounds
It's
cool.
good fun,
and it looks.
I'll give you a game
great.
if you want, Meehan. I think you'd like it because.
What? So you can beat me at another card game like you always beat me at Keyforge?
Based on our Keyforge playthroughs, I think you'd enjoy it.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed being trashed. So yeah, I'll take some more.
All right, cool. Wood, you've also got down here Set a Watch, Swords of the Coin. Tell us about it quickly.
Yeah, I'll do that one a little bit more quickly because I had a lot to say about Din. But we also did a Let's Play, which should be on the channel already by the time you watch this, which was Set a Watch, the new standalone expansion, Swords of the Coin. If you've not heard of it already, I think it's one of the funniest Let's Plays we've ever put on the channel, the Set a Watch Let's Play, because me and Johnny basically played this co-op game. And all of the worst things that could happen happened to us at the same time, and it's just like we just got absolutely trounced, and we were just losing our minds by the end. And you know, we could actually be in a room physically together, so that was fun. But it was, but it was like a really good fun Let's Play, where you know we obviously got annihilated by the end of it, but we were just completely enamored of it by the end. And you know, Johnny did a review and had some pretty good praise for it, and we played it quite a lot. And recently Johnny was like, oh, I've been craving Set a Watch, so I bought a copy because I can't get to the office to find the one that we have and stuff like that. So when I found the Swords of the Coin expansion on Kickstarter, had actually put out a workshop mod for Tabletop Sim. I was like, oh, let's do it. Let's go. Because we were looking for someone to play through anyway. And Swords of the Coin is cool. Adds a lot of fun new things, a lot of cool new characters, a lot of the same stuff that you'd expect, but with different effects and different abilities. I don't know if it's just us, but it's harder as well.
Oh god! As if that game could get any harder at times.
Because the last Let's Play we did was a 2-parter, and I think it was 2 sort of like just under an hour playthroughs. We smashed this one out in about 30 minutes because we died so quick. we did fluff a couple of rules, which made it harder for us, but we died in the second location. Like, it was an absolute whitewash. But we were kind of playing it. Sorry, man.
Does it just add new enemy types, or is it?
Yeah, it's content. There's a new merchant, so you can buy items that will equip to your character and stuff. So that's kind of like the core gimmick. But it's a whole new suite of heroes, whole new suite of monsters.
Oh wow,
a whole new suite of locations.
Huge. That's basically a new game.
Well, yeah. So it's standalone. So you can play it. You can buy it on its own and just play it like that, or you can mix and match. There's like deck building rules now to build your deck of monsters, and it will give you sort of rules for making sure that you've got enough creatures for each of the heroes to actually be able to do their abilities. But if you're not, if you know you're not using a certain hero, you can just leave out some of the creatures and stuff.
The game I played of Set of Watch a few weeks ago with my friend, we actually did find that we took the cleric with us, and it was a total, a really bad move because we didn't encounter any undead, whatsoever. And it just felt like we had a useless party member because literally all the cleric's abilities are to do with dealing undead. So I don't know whether that's in the original game.
Yeah, so we had... we briefly mentioned the fact that the cleric is kind of like a glass cannon because he might be the most powerful member in a fight, or he can just sit there doing absolutely nothing. And it felt like the characters that they'd added in the new section were very specific, but not in a way that it relied on certain things being drawn. It was more that they interacted with the game in a very specific way. So a couple of examples we had were the bounty hunter. So the bounty hunter, if they contributed to a kill with direct damage, they could opt to take that card as a trophy, and then they could either sell it for coin, which they can buy new items for, or they can use it to power their abilities. So like if you kill a dragon, it's not just, oh thank god we got rid of the dragon, but also it's like a really high value thing that you've got yourself, and you can get a fair price or a decent ability out of it. We had as well one of my favorite moments is when we realized there's a barbarian character, and the way that Set Watch works is you have like a type of die based on how much damage you can do. So if you're a bit rubbish, you might just have a D4 or a D6. If you're really powerful, you can go up to like D8s, D10s. And the barbarian is the only character in the game that can have a D12, which means that they can do ridiculous amounts of damage, and they have an ability that can allow them to go all the way up to 12 on their dice and stuff like that. The thing is, though, the barbarian's abilities can only be triggered by exhausting them rather than spending a die on them. So they are literally like exploding themselves every time that they do something powerful, where it's just like you're constantly having to wrap bandages around them because it's like, please stop getting yourself hurt. But it's really, really good. Yeah, there's a lot of really cool new content. And it's one of those things where it's like, if you love Set Watch, you'll love this because it's more of the same, but with added new fun things, and they've been quite creative with the new characters.
Cool.
Good.
All right. Shall we move on to news?
Yeah.
We're going to start with a relatively heavy one.
Great.
So.
Oh yeah.
So
let's lift the party.
The publishers of Teotihuacan, which is Board and Dice, and Marco Polo, which is Hans im Glück, have officially cut ties with the designer or co-designer of those games, Daniele Tassini.
Because he sucks.
Yeah, in short. So Tassini was... I think this stemmed from an interview given to an Italian magazine originally, where Tassini made remarks about... It was basically discussing diversity and race in games. Also made some comments about kind of women in games, I think referring to Wingspan designer Elizabeth Hargrave. And out of the back of that, there were these face comments made on Facebook by the designer, in which he said many things, but chief among them was the implication that he uses a racial slur to refer to his friends. There was further discussion of race. And so at the back of that, there was obvious outcry and rightful outcry. Ticini then made an apology on Facebook, but effectively didn't go far enough. And that was the feeling from these publishers as well, who then came out and made official statements saying that they were severing ties, they would not accept future projects, current projects in development would be cancelled. In the case of Board and Dice, I believe they said they will... I'm just trying to find the details. And obviously, if, this is a podcast where we are kind of relatively skimming through this. If you want the full story, like, go to our website or seek it out yourself in other places for all the full detail and context. Because it's obviously a very knotty subject. There's a lot
right
involved
at the bottom.
Yeah.
The statement from Board and Dice.
Yeah, so they kind of summed up the general feeling, in which they said, basically, when called upon to make a statement and a strong apology, Mr. Ticini failed to acknowledge his wrongdoing, being primarily concerned with providing context to his racist remarks. Words matter, but actions matter more. So following that, Hans im Glück, which is the German publisher of Marco Polo, which Ticini co-designed, came out and again condemned, the racist remarks made, and added that it would continue to sell games like Marco Polo that had previously been published, because they effectively said, it wouldn't be fair to publish the other designers of those games. But they will also be donating profits from the sale of those titles towards anti-racism organisations, and it wouldn't accept future projects from Ticini. But made a similar statement, which I'm obviously paraphrasing here, but basically said, there's no reason for using certain words. Every apology to do so regardless only serves the protection of white privilege. So in short, these remarks were made, like pretty heinous remarks. Ticini apologized, but the apology just basically didn't excuse what had been said and what had been implied. And that's kind of the long and short of it. Is
I think we see a lot of these sort of like half apologies where it's just sort of here are the things that I feel like I have to say, but also, hey, let up because of this. And a lot of the time, there are kind of sort of a lot of red flags in the statement for me, where it was like, when you translate it, sure, it looks bad, but I really don't think that's the case. I think considering a lot of these statements were made publicly on Facebook, which means that he probably had no problem saying them publicly, but also were pulled by people who speak Italian. Like, I don't think you can say, oh, this is a translation issue and that's why I'm looking bad right now. But at any point, if someone comes to you and asks you difficult questions about the actions that you're having in a community and the things that you're saying, and your first response is to go, whoa, hey now, like, that's, you're being too aggressive and you're attacking my idea here. Like, it's always going to be a bad look. Like, you can't immediately try to protect yourself when you've already done damage to someone else, in my personal opinion. But like, it sort of reeked of that for me, and I think that's why it really kind of like was very tiring to see, especially because we had like a similar thing that we were talking about earlier in the year with like some pretty misogynistic comments that had sort of spun out from old blog posts from a pretty prominent designer as well. And it's like, one thing that I took heart from the whole situation is that like these things are now getting called out, which means that there is positive change being made. There was a really good statement from, I've actually forgotten the origin of it, but that I saw on Twitter from someone who's quite prominent in the community, just saying the fact that these things are coming to light sucks when you read them, but knowing that these things are now not being stood for anymore, and that these people who were kind of in charge of the industry at certain points and were kind of leading the thing and making us all uncomfortable, now being called out and sort of pushed out, is positive. Like, and it's, ripping that band-aid off is always going to be good for the rest of us as a group.
I mean, it's bad enough. Like, the thing is with the tabletop gaming community and industry is the fact that obviously it's got plenty of really lovely people in there. However, a lot of the people at the top, you know, the really big designers, are people, you know, that a lot of them are like white cis men who, you know, in the case of this particular designer, have potentially been allowed to kind of get away with having these kind of views and saying these kind of things. It's disappointing that it's there, but there is a hope that with you know, more diverse creators and a more diverse audience means that these kind of people will be, as Will said, pushed out in favor of people who aren't awful like that. And the thing is with the tabletop gaming industry and community is that it needs to open really quite badly. Like, it's getting better, but there still needs to be more attempts to be made to, you know, encourage, you know, people of colour, people who aren't just straight, you know, like people who aren't just cis, into creating things and getting more involved, because then stuff like this will be called out even more and it'll become less and less acceptable. Not that it ever was acceptable. And, you know, it'll be a better place for everyone. So, this stuff is disappointing, but it, like Will said, it's good that it's being called out, and that, more importantly, that publishers are responding to it and actually doing something about it. That's a good sign, because they hold a lot of power. So what they're saying, what they're doing, sends a pretty strong message that this stuff isn't okay. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I like I say, it's worth seeking out both those statements in full, because they are, like, they're strong statements. They're pretty clear cut, unlike the apology, in that they are just, you know, these are the facts. This is what we're doing about it. Yeah. There's no kind of like dilly-dallying around or anything like that. It's no kind of like wishy-washy language. So yeah, I'd seek those out, seek out the full context. But yeah, it's like you say, it's the silver lining to all of this is it's coming to the fore. Action is being taken to ensure that it's kind of stamped out going forward. But the fact that it happened in the first place, and you know, it's pretty shocking to read those comments, and then the suggestion of, oh well, it means something different in Italian, and then many Italian commenters going like, no, absolutely not. That is not how you know. That's not how you excuse this. It's literally inexcusable.
Don't use your language to hide the fact that you're a racist jerk. Like, that is just the worst thing. And
so yes, but like I say, I would seek out those statements in full from both of those publishers. Seek out the context of the full story wherever you may find it. All right, well, let's move on to something a little easier to discuss. It's the Dungeons and Dragons TV series.
Yeah.
Don't take the easy bait that's there.
Looking at the
so the latest update, there's no way to transition out that easy. The latest update with the D&D TV series, you may remember last year we discussed there is a live action D&D series in the works over at Hasbro. It was first announced in an investor call. It was kind of an offhand comment about, oh, we're working on multiple approaches to adapting D&D for the small screen, including a live action series. And now the Hollywood Reporter has indeed reported that the writer and kind of creator of the John Wick franchise, so the original script writer of the first John Wick film and script writer for the two sequels, is currently writing and developing a pitch for the D&D live action series. So this is Derek Kolstad. Like I say, wrote the original script, I think under a different name of Scorn. Before, I believe Keanu Reeves, who starred in those films, suggested that they should just call it John Wick. I might be misremembering there, but I think that came from Keanu Reeves. But Kolstad penned the original script. So basically, you know, came up with that universe in a lot of ways. But yes, is currently working on this live action series. There's no information about what it will be, how it will tie into the universe, whether it will star Keanu Reeves punching people in the mouth and looking for his dog.
Please. Please let it be that. Please let it be Keanu Reeves punching a wizard.
Just absolutely caking them.
Yeah, they killed his, I don't know, what's the D&D equivalent of a puppy? A baby bugbear.
Yeah.
I regret to inform you, Meehan, that there are dogs in the Dungeons and Dragons universe.
Yeah, but that's not as fun as like a baby shrub or something. Like
it's Dungeons and Dragons, Meehan. It's not supposed to be fun.
Well, excuse me.
So it's worth saying here, it's not 100% clear if this is the same series that was mentioned last year. So the CEO of Hasbro, which owns Wizards of the Coast, which owns Dungeons and Dragons, said at the time, like I say, multiple options were being explored. So that suggests that this isn't the only series in development, but this is the only one we've had a sniff of detail about so far.
Totally unsurprised me if there are like 10 different D&D shows in development right now, so they can milk that sweet teat.
Well, I think in some ways, right, that makes much more sense than the upcoming movie, which we've had little bits of detail about. Because D&D, you know, at some point you're just putting an actual play on Netflix or something like that. You know, you dress it up enough, but it's effectively something that you'd see in a session of D&D, you know, 1-2 hour session. Like D&D works in an episodic format. So I think that's easier to imagine of like, okay, maybe you do it in the same way that Fargo does, where it's an anthology and it's based on Curse of Strahd for the first series, and then it's based on whatever the
fart machine
machine
rides again. That's our TV show.
How long does it take to redecorate a flat? That's what I want to know.
With a drill.
With a drill, yeah. As your only tool.
The thing is, John Wick, the John Wick films are kind of a little bit, episodic anyway. You know, as John Wick kind of moves from this target to this target or whatever.
Yeah, they're literally called chapter 2 and chapter 3.
Yeah. But even within the films themselves, they're kind of episodic in the sense that it's John Wick is more like these are set pieces that are sort of strung together with this narrative, but really we know you're here for the set pieces that we've devised, and I feel like that could potentially work for a D&D series. The one, obviously, like for me, a big criticism of John Wick is the fact that some of the characters are great, but for the most part, that's not really what you watch it for. And for me, the D&D actual plays that I really like are the ones where the characters are really like engaging. You can really get invested in their individual storyline and things like that. But John Wick is its own thing. That's not to say that this screenplay writer can't. Was he the script writer or the director, or
original writer, script writer.
The original writer, so, yeah. That's not to say that this writer can't write characters at all.
I regret to inform you, Meehan, that after looking at Derek Kolstad's IMDb page, although a lot of these say unannounced in brackets of when they're coming out, so they might just be rumours, seems like he is writing for the Hitman TV series, the Just Cause screenplay.
Oh wow, huh?
And I think one of the Marvel TV series, is it Winter
the Falcon
Soldier?
and the Winter Soldier miniseries, a TV series called Die
jobs?
Hard.
How many jobs has this person got? Like,
well, I imagine it doesn't take a lot of writing to make these kind of things.
Whoa!
Scene where people shoot each other a lot.
Just procedurally
generated my
at some
daughter.
point.
Scene where people shoot each other a lot.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the main thing I'm worried about with this is, because we've already had the era of embarrassingness from D&D. That's over now. Like, I don't think we're going to get that again. What I'm worried is...
You don't think there's going to be more embarrassing stories about D&D?
I don't think there'll be an embarrassment like the D&D film. Because, that had heart behind it despite being a mess. I worry that this television series is going to be very shallow, and it's going to be all like set pieces and CGI, and not like, oh, you know what? The reason why people actually like playing role-playing games is because they can, you know, make these characters who they want to get invested in, and not so they can shoot a fireball at a gnome or something. I don't know. But...
a gnoblin.
Yeah.
As a slight counterpart, I think you're right that like the characters in John Wick are just like, they're basically mannequins, right? That are being posed into shooty car drivey punchy scenes.
Yeah. Except for Willem Dafoe,
yeah.
of course, because Willem Dafoe puts, you know, his soul in every character.
Yeah, he's going for it. You know.
Yeah.
He's 2 rewrites away from throwing a pumpkin at people and turning them into skeletons. But I think the thing that they did manage to do well in the John Wick series is they built up the lore around John Wick quite well. The kind of assassination hotel, you know, like people giving each other coins and going excommunicado. So they hinted at that wider world in a way that I think was surprising given what those films are, which is shooty, punchy, car drivey.
Yeah, 2 is
shooty, punchy, car driving.
Yeah. Oh, that genre. 2 is where it really kind of goes in a completely different direction, and you're like, what? And then 3, it's just off the rails. But who is the actor who just hangs around in the hotel?
Oh, isn't it Lance Reddick?
No, the older man.
I can't remember.
Yeah, this is not fun listening. No one wants to hear people trying to remember the name of it. It will come to me again. Like, I think he owns the hotel, but yeah. Now that I can't remember his name, it's not going to be amusing what I'm going to say next. So
I think I watched half of John Wick because it was on a TV when we arrived at an event, and then I stopped watching, although I feel like I've watched all of John Wick. Do you know what I mean?
I like him.
Yeah, I'm
not saying that.
I'll go to bat for John Wick.
Yeah.
In that first film, he hits someone with a car and then shoots them while they're rolling over the car, and that was kind of cool. If they could just do that with, I don't know, a sword. I guess a car also hit someone.
No, just have a car. A ye olde car.
I guess a lot of people see themselves as John Wick when they play D&D. Although, yeah, I was keen to say, like, oh, you know, he's a screenwriter just because he wrote John Wick doesn't mean that that's his only wheelhouse, you know. But like, from the things he's working on, he does seem like he is the car driving, shooty, punchy man as
yeah, I mean, I get Hitman, I get Just Cause, I get all of that.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. But D&D, I don't know. Like, I was kind of hoping that they would hire. I guess he's kind of an unknown, but I was kind of hoping they would just hire someone who, you know, needs a leg up in the industry, or like someone really left field to kind of give it a go.
Sam Raimi. Get Sam Raimi involved.
Sam Raimi would be so good.
That is how you make.
And you know he would use practical effects, and I'm so on board for that. Because I love me some practical effects.
I'd take a Sam Raimi Dungeons and Dragons film.
Yeah, like really violent.
Yeah, oh yeah, unbelievably so.
Like gory. The actor I was thinking of is Ian McShane.
Yeah.
I would love him to be in the D&D series, and all he does is just sit in a location and just drink.
He probably will be. He's in pretty much everything at this point, isn't he?
He's in a lot of things. He was in Death Race, which...
Yeah, he's in American Gods. He's been in... He just turns up and he gravels at people and then...
Matt, he was in Death Race, okay? Do I need to...
All right, well, we'll continue to comment and criticise every single decision that they make surrounding the Dungeons & Dragons
because we can, that's what we're here for.
But that's all we know for the moment. So let's move on to these next 2 stories, which I'm going to bundle together as a quick one, because they happen to pop up kind of around the same day. So I think we've chatted before about the fact that people are paying a lot of money for Pokemon cards. There's kind of a bubble at the moment, thanks to folks like, I think Logic, the rapper, bought that Charizard for a lot of money. But now it appears that a Blastoise has sold for even more money. Alex Meehan, you wrote this story. Tell us about this Blastoise card.
Yeah, I'm in the chopper. I'm looking at this Blastoise.
It's in/on chopper.
above this person's house, whoever's bought this Blastoise.
Sorry, my phone just fell out of my pocket.
Well, Wheels is so taken aback by the amount of money this person's paid for this Blastoise. Okay, so yeah, someone bought a Blastoise card for $360,000, which is the most anyone's ever paid at an auction for a Pokemon card. So that beats the Charizard from last year. Yeah, this is a very particular card, so it's a bit odd. So there's actually a whole history behind this card, because it's one of a kind of a set of 4, where so Wizards of the Coast used to make Pokemon, the Pokemon trading card game, and so I imagine in their pitch to Nintendo to say, hey, this could work internationally. They made these 4 Blastoise cards, and 3 of them have Magic the Gathering backs, because they must have just used, whatever they had to hand to kind of create these prototypes. But this one very particularly has a blank back, and it's got a different background to it. So obviously it's unique in that set of 4, and like some of these other cards have been found by the Magic the Gathering community, but this one in particular is one of 2. The other one is missing. No one knows where it is, because it was used for international purposes. So as far as people know, this is the only one that is out there. And so this person, whoever's bought it, I guess it is a kind of very unique item. I imagine maybe in several years' time it will probably be worth even more, depending on how popular Pokemon is.
Or the bubble will burst and they'll all be worth 50p again.
Yeah, or it'll be worth 50p. Yeah, the artwork is done by like the original designer for Pokemon, Ken Sugimori. So hey, on the same day, a booster box of first edition Pokemon cards was sold for $408,000. So that's even more than the one that was sold last year through the same website. And I think it's about the same kind of set. It looks like the first edition's booster packs. It could contain a Charizard. Who knows? But yeah, if you want to bid for this card, you can still sort of. The owner is taking offers, but they have to be at least $468,000. So if you've got $468,000 lying around.
Well, Meehan, let me tell you, I've got an even better bargain for you.
Whoa!
Because around the same time, or currently live, in fact, on eBay, is a Magic the Gathering card, which is similarly unique and is similarly, or appears to be, the most expensive Magic the Gathering card that's ever gone up at auction. So it's currently sitting at $310,000 on eBay. It's had 113 bids. But it is the Black Lotus, which some folks may know because it's relatively iconic in that it has, for a long time, been Magic the Gathering's kind of most valuable card. They typically go for about 200 grand, so it's not, it's not like you're ever going to pick up one of these for a $5 down the local car boot. But this one is unique in that it's signed by the designer and illustrator. I say it's signed. The case that it's contained in is signed because the card itself is rated at a perfect 10 gem mint condition. So it's about as kind of pristine as they come. Yeah.
It was created by blowing on it.
So yeah, like I say, it's currently up on eBay of all places. It's signed by Christopher Rush, who designed and illustrated it originally. And for a while, the bids, while I was looking at it, they shot up over $1 million, but then they were cancelled. So I suspect some folks were just kind of putting in joke bids. But yeah, it looks like it's going to become Magic the Gathering's most kind of valuable card ever sold, beating out previous Black Lotus cards. So
auctions in general have gone a bit downhill.
The thing
it used
is,
to be like,
I'm not convinced these are things that people actually want. I think they literally just get them because they're like, oh, this will be worth even more.
it's a collector's market, right?
That's all it is.
It's the same as buying gold bullion or whatever, isn't it? But it's just like, you know, it used to be that you turn up at an auction because, you know, you're an old money, whatever. You've got dollar bills accidentally falling out of your trousers every time you move, and you turn up, it's like, oh, today we have the ancient Fabergé egg that was handcrafted by Jesus Christ himself, and we're opening the bid at £250,000.
Yeah.
And now it's like, come on eBay, I've got a picture of Blastoise that was printed on a piece of card. Didn't even have a back on it.
Wills, I'll have you know that the auction house PWCC, which is selling the Black Lotus, describes the Black Lotus as, quote, the holy grail of Magic cards.
Yeah.
So perhaps,
basically like Jesus.
Yeah, Jesus may have played with this card, himself, if he was playing after 1993 when it first came out.
He may have used it in his deck.
Oh my god.
The thing is, they don't even have the person to go, oh, I don't want to, oh, you don't want to.
Exactly.
Yeah, where's that person?
Where's the fun?
Now you got to go to a cow auction if you want that.
Oh, I'd love a cow.
The
thing is, the art for this card is also really kind of, no offense to the artist, it's kind of rubbish.
Is this
in
the
terms
Black Lotus?
of, like, it's boring. Like, it's just, I've seen some Magic cards and there's some pretty wild stuff. But a Black Lotus is nothing to really, get particularly excited about. Also, I'm very sad because my brother used to collect Pokemon cards, and I'm aware that there is some in my parents' loft. The loft is basically like, the old woman in the labyrinth was loads of rubbish everywhere. That is what my parents' loft is like. It's like a hoarder's nightmare. No, but to be honest, a hoarder's dream. And I know they're in some dilapidated old cardboard box, rotting away, probably with some wasps on them or something. And I'm like, I could have paid for my university.
Yeah, I mean, for folks who are suddenly like, well, I've got Pokemon cards, they can be worth loads. It's worth saying
Matt's
that
about to crush your dreams.
Often these are very specific versions. So the Charizard that was sold is what's known as a shadowless Charizard. So it's like a printing error. Which makes it extremely rare. But, that's not to say that cards can't be worth, tens to hundreds to even thousands of pounds or dollars. These are obviously, the extreme end of that. If you're looking for something a little cheaper, there's just a normal Black Lotus rated at 9 mint condition for 250 grand.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird how, like, just the sole fact that it is a thing that doesn't exist in quantity makes it valuable.
Yeah.
Like, even though, as you say, a lot of them are just print errors. It's like, bugger this one up, haven't I? Shove that in the bin. No, it'll be worth £500,000 in 40, 100 years or whatever. So just keep it around.
Yeah, maybe I can start a lucrative business of like faking errors on Pokemon cards in hopes of selling them for enormous wads.
I mean,
Dicebreaker does not.
I'm sure I've got like a copy of my uni dissertation, which like I was missing red ink or something at the time that I printed it. If you want that for $250,000, then hit me up.
Dicebreaker does not endorse creating counterfeit Pokemon cards to sell online.
Yeah, I'll be like Melissa McCarthy in that film. I can't remember what it's called now. Will You Ever Forgive Me or something like that?
Yeah.
It's a very
She's
good
a
one.
novelist, right? It's kind of...
Yeah, but she counterfeits like letters from authors and sells those for massive wads. But I'll just do that with Pokemon cards, and then they'll make a film about me because that was based on a true story. And then I'll be in a film.
Yeah, that's how... Wait, that's not how it works. That's a documentary, not...
I mean,
you'd have to turn... I'm going to turn myself in and hope that I can play myself in the film about me that they'll then make.
Yeah. And then Richard E. Grant will be in it.
But not playing you. I mean, they could get Richard E. Grant to play you. To be fair,
I would love that.
Could you imagine that? All right, let's. We're swiftly running out of time. So let's move on to this little RPG that's popped up. Alex, Meehan, tell us about Lighthearted.
Oh, I will.
Good.
Yeah, Lighthearted is an RPG that's getting a Kickstarter campaign later this month. If you like The Breakfast Club, I've never seen it.
That's all right.
It's aged poorly.
Yeah,
it's got
I've
some
heard
troubling
that.
Content.
Then, and other 1980s coming of age films, you'll probably like Lighthearted because it kind of combines a lot of tropes you see in those films with fantasy tropes to kind of make this world of, you know, we're trying to find our own way, we're jocks or we're nerds, but we want to try and break free from those, you know, tropes and become our own people, which, you know, kind of like the idea of that. The way that the GM, who is described as the director, describes the scene as they talk about it like it's a cinema kind of experience. So they describe the lighting and you know the camera angles, and there's even an official soundtrack you can play while, you know, playing the game. And it's a mixture. The system is a mixture of Savage Worlds and Powered by the Apocalypse. So you've got an emotional die, which like the wild die you see in Savage Worlds, and like your skill die, and those combined kind of create your result. And you don't really, you can have like semi successes where you take like a negative attribute with the success. And there's not a specific date for the Kickstarter. You can play an early access version for free on itch.io right now.
This is the Pots, right? This is Kurt and Kate.
Yeah.
Kurt was the one who organised it's a while ago now, but the bundles of RPGs it was just before the big NAACP one went out, I think. But that's where we discovered sort of like the machine, and I believe Kurt also wrote Sigils in the Dark.
Yep.
Yes, yeah, that's right.
So good pedigree, I reckon. Some of the art is giving me some quite funny vibes, because there's a lady holding up some fingers, and then that's like, oh, look how powerful these are. But it's, you know, if you just but it's it's good.
And Mr. Jarvis, please take control of this runaway train.
I think it looks cool and it sounds cool. I'm kind of into it. Like, we're obviously seeing a lot of 80s inspired stuff at the moment, thanks to things like Stranger Things and all of that kind of nostalgic wave. But this seems to be going about it in kind of like a fun way where, I know, like it obviously draws from those films, but the fact that you've got a straight up director, it's not trying to pretend that it's anything that it's not. It sounds like, you know, it's really playing into those tropes rather than just...
It's become quite a more common thing, actually, the whole sort of like treating the GM like they are sort of directing a scene. Like I remember when we were playing Aegon with John Harper, he would say, you know, imagine the camera is panning up and stuff like that. I think it's becoming sort of a useful tool for people to have when they're trying to work out what it is to be a GM sort of thing.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, well, imagine you are directing a film, like what would you be showing the audience right now? Because that's what you're showing your players.
Yeah. I think it makes it more accessible for a lot of people, right? Because a lot of people GM like that anyway. You know, there are different ways to GM.
Without realizing, right?
Yeah, it's a much more accessible way of saying, hey, you're the director of this film with your friends, rather than saying you're a game master, and if you've never played an RPG before, that can be quite daunting. So, all right, let's quickly move on to this last one. The Chase wrote up, and we'll send to me at some point. Bean dice.
Beans.
You're very welcome.
There are bean dice. That is dice with baked beans inside. They are real baked beans. They are dried, it's worth saying. So it's not like they're bobbing around in there.
Yeah, I must admit, the thought of it makes me feel a little bit ill. Like the thought of the beans bobbing about in there. So I'm glad they're dry, although I'm not hugely keen on them as it is.
I think I'd like them even more if they were blobbing
no,
around. You rolled it.
Gross.
Yeah.
I wonder if they taste like beans if you lick them.
Probably not.
I imagine they taste like epoxy, to be honest.
Yeah. So this is from the Dice Buffet, who you can find on Twitter at Dice Buffet, which is a kind of like a relatively small kind of bespoke dice maker. But they put out these bean dice, and suddenly they blew up, and everyone was talking about the bean dice. Helped by the fact that there are several pictures of the bean dice in beans, which I don't mind the bean dice as they are, but seeing them in beans, something
not right.
something turns inside of me, and it's like,
yeah,
so,
I'm not keen because like
there's a Facebook page called Things Filled with Beans That Should Not Be Filled with Beans, or something along those lines. And it's really good content.
If there's not a sock filled with beans, I'm leaving.
There's
right
all
now.
sorts of things. Meehan, I'll send it to you. I'm sure you'll get a kick out of it.
To be honest,
There's a lot of things you can put beans inside of.
I'm both curious and disgusted at the same time.
It's absolutely cursed.
Yeah.
But one of my favourite ones is they have these eyeball dice, which have eyeballs inside, but the eyeballs will float up to meet the surface, which is really cool.
Yeah,
It's spooky dice.
It just feels like these sort of things are from what I call the age of gunge, which is like
I know
the
exactly
late
what you mean
'90s,
when you
early
say that.
'90s, where everyone, kids basically were obsessed with gunge, slime, or some form of that.
It's where like every other advert for a toy on Nickelodeon would have the sound effect of kids going ew.
Yeah,
in the background,
there'll be like the toilet that had the brown gunge in it, like and that like the big
Fart
thing
party.
was the big thing was, isn't it so disgusting? But it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I mean, some people say that age is coming back with the invention of the fart machine, exclusively directly below my flat.
So yeah, it's worth adding on these. It's not the first dice that Lilith, who runs the Dice Buffet, has made. They've also made various kind of. To be careful with the wording here, they're dice with edible things inside, but they are not edible dice. So do not eat these dice, please. But they've made dice with SpaghettiOs, or spaghetti hoops for us here in the UK. Candy corn, I don't know if that has a UK equivalent, it's candy corn. And M&Ms. So yeah, but beans seems to be the one that's really struck a chord with people.
Yeah.
For whatever
just
horrible
great comedy
reason.
value. And it was a really good product photo shoot as well.
Yeah, it's very strong.
Of them sitting. There's also, I don't know if you picked up on this, but they've actually made a bean dice coffin.
I saw this, yeah.
It's a coffin that you put your dice in that's made of beans. So it's just fantastic, really.
I think they should do pickles next.
Bury me in the
Gherkins,
bean
as
coffin,
well.
please.
Smirking Gherkin dice.
Smirking Gherkin dice. We should contact them about that.
I've got like a one extra news story that, I mean, it's not really tabletop related, but I thought I'd just slip in. Did you hear the Gwyneth Paltrow's vagina candle exploded?
Yes, I did read this, Wills. I didn't put it in the news section, funnily enough. Anyway.
Gwyneth Paltrow probably played a board game
Oh
once, right?
god!
Oh, that's unfortunate. That's all the time we've got for news this week. Anyway, should we move on to
Been a
emails?
very messy episode, I have to say.
That's what you say.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you say if Gwyneth Paltrow's vagina candle explodes as well.
Exactly that.
We cannot name this episode Gwyneth Paltrow's vagina candle.
Of course you can. Why do you think I brought it
That,
up? So that
honestly,
we can
do you
name
not
the
think that
podcast
sounds like a
back?
math rock band?
Yeah, it really does. It really does.
Hello, we're Gwyneth Paltrow's vagina candle, and we're here to rock.
It sounds like a play on Danny Dutter's chocolate homunculus from Peep Show.
Grant, almost undoubtedly, Grant Howitt is working on a one-page RPG at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
It's in the works,
be
surely.
careful handling your vagina candle.
All right, let's move on to emails.
Emails!
Because we have actually overshot a little bit. If you've got an email for the Dicebreaker podcast, you can reach us at podcast@dicebreaker.com. You can find us on Twitter at joindicebreaker. You can find us on dicebreaker.com or on youtube.com/dicebreaker. Come say hello. I'm going to skip straight to this one from Pim. Wills, would you like to read the one from Pim?
Yes, Pim Steenberg says, I recently pitched a D&D/Magic the Gathering X Monopoly crossover in the Ravnica setting. What do you think would make a good Monopoly edition?
Beans.
That question really confused me. So, a Monopoly crossover in Ravnica,
Yeah.
right? Because it's guild,
which is the Magic the Gathering plane. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I honestly, I think this is kind of a moot question because they've done them all, right? They've done every Monopoly crossover that's physically possible. They've all been done.
Wheels, have they done beans though? That's what I want.
I reckon they've probably done beans. Have you guys seen that advert where it's like 15 minutes long? You know, it's one of those adverts that thinks it's a short film, and it's like, you know, it's International Women's Day coming up. We want to look at some of the incredible things that women have done, and you're going through this advert and you're like, what are they selling? What are they selling? And at the end, like, they get these sort of like prominent young female designers and stuff who are like, you know, engineers and scientists and musicians, and they give them a copy of Ms. Monopoly.
Yeah.
And it's just the worst thing I've ever seen. Like, a million pounds. Had I not brought it up in a Monopoly context, you would not have been able to tell me what that advert was for. Like,
and also Monopoly, a game where they literally erased the female creator of it.
Yep.
Yeah, like
and
it
the
was,
original message.
Yeah, it was basically stolen from.
Exactly that. Yeah. Incredible stuff.
So,
but yeah, beans is our answer.
Beans.
So
this actually turns. So Chase wrote a story the other day on Dicebreaker, which I didn't put into news because it was kind of like it was a busy news week. But there is a book currently on Kickstarter called A Fine Mend, which has like variants of classic games, and among them is a variant of Monopoly. So it's kind of completely reimagined. I think it's called Bourgeoisie Swine.
Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah, Bourgeoisie Swine.
It doesn't sound like a variant. That just sounds like the base game.
So yeah, it's interesting. Like, I think there's a game to be made out of Monopoly that's not terrible, but you need to take everything out of Monopoly first. Monopoly deal's all right. That card game's okay.
Flip question here. I can flip the question on its head. If there was one Monopoly variant that you could delete from existence, never to return again, which one would it be? Because mine would be Socialist Monopoly, which is the biggest boomer joke you've ever had.
You mean, is that Monopoly for millennials? Is that the one, or is that a separate?
Yeah, Millennial Monopoly or Socialism Monopoly,
or
Communism Monopoly. Oh,
it's like, you're
horrendous.
poor.
Yeah, that was the tone they took of it, of like, lol, millennials can't buy property, so instead you're renting.
Yeah, we just sat here just seething.
They've got.
I don't know. I've covered so many. It's like,
I feel like the theme isn't the problem though, right? Like, real estate can be an interesting theme for a board game. The problem is the mechanics. So it doesn't really matter what theme you slap on top of it. At some point, it's the core that's the problem. Like I say,
Warhammer 40k Monopoly is a bit of an eyesore, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I covered up.
But you'd love to delete that from existence, wouldn't you?
Monopoly Game is meant to be okay, because I think they... And I tell you what, Fortnite Monopoly, I'm intrigued, because apparently you can build walls and stuff in it. It actually takes some ideas from Fortnite, which is interesting, at least. That's the...
I never thought I'd hear the words Fortnite Monopoly coming out of Mr. Jarvis' mouth.
I just love that Matt was like struggling to get it out, and is like, the only way that I'm going to get through this if I just sound as old and middle class as I can.
I've heard of this thing. All the kids love Fortnite Monopoly.
The kids have been talking non-stop.
I don't know. Isn't there a Garbage Pail Kids one?
Yeah, I mean,
you
name it. There's one. There's Dragon Ball Z. There's
this is the thing where it's like, you know, Ravnica. It's probably on the way. I'm sure there's a D&D one already.
Yes, there is a D&D one on the way. If we reported on it last year. Yeah. So
it never ends.
At some point, I think you just need a different game. Put Monopoly on a different game. Don't put a different game on Monopoly.
What's wild is that Monopoly is kind of like the Funko Pops of board games, and yet there are Funko Pop board games. Like, it's somehow Monopoly is more of a Funko Pop board game than the Funko Pop board games are. It's nonsense.
Where's the
Funko Pop board games are not good.
No, none of the things that we're talking about right now.
That's true. Where's the Uncle,
including Gwyneth Paltrow's vagina?
Uncle Pennybags Funko Pop? I feel like that's a bit of pop culture they've overlooked.
What, sorry?
Where's the Uncle Pennybags or whatever what's the name of the Monopoly guy?
Oh, is it not?
I'm sure it's Uncle Pennybags or Uncle Rich Bags or
something like that.
money bags.
There
Probably
probably
not
is
penny
one,
bags,
though.
right?
Like,
I'm gonna find it. Right. Rich Uncle Penny bags. I
Rich
told
Rich
you.
Uncle
Penny
Penny
bags,
bags.
yeah.
Why has he got bags full of pennies? I thought he was rich.
Yeah, but it was made in the 20s, wasn't it? So that's like
Oh,
a different.
yeah, like 10 pennies was like 50 grand.
His age
You
is
could
presumed.
mortgage a house with 10 pennies.
This is from the Wikipedia page for Rich Uncle Pennybags. His age is presumed to be between 60 and 80 years old, which is a sentence that makes it read like he's wanted by local law enforcement.
Probably
He
for
can
tax
be
evasion.
identified by
Walking
large top
around
hat and
with a
moustache.
bloody penny bag that he's just bludgeoned someone with. Oh my god.
Mm.
Should we read the next question?
Yes, let's move on. Meehan, would you like to read this one from Callum, please?
Oh, Callum.
Oh, we're going to answer your question now.
Callum asked, real new to D&D. So is the group I've managed to rustle together. We're going to have to do it via video chat for obvious reasons. Any tips to make it fairly seamless? Our DM has only hosted games in person.
I would say, genuinely, D&D Beyond is great.
Yeah,
Like, D&D Beyond is the best thing to come out of D&D. Like, a dedicated HTML character sheet for your game is, I think, going to be one of the must-haves for new complicated systems because it makes everything so much easier.
Yeah.
You can just click on a spell, blammo, there is a result and everything. Like, it's really, really good. Does all the character creation for you just like you're playing a video game. Like, it's fantastic.
And unless you're, like, creating a character with a very specific subclass or, like, a certain species, then, like, it's all free. Like, you don't even need to get the subscription. So
yeah, and it's fully user-generated content as well. So like you can find all of the like homebrew stuff that people have made and uploaded. Yeah. So yeah, genuinely, as much as I rag on D&D Beyond is a really good resource.
It is really good.
I will also say, just a general tip: if you can, video call, because being able to see other people is a huge help when you're trying to not talk over people. You can see when people are getting ready to talk. You can not just like have that awkward silence in between every sentence where everyone's like, is somebody gonna no, I'll say something then.
Yeah, it's also worth saying, like, just take it easy to begin with. Like, if you've never played over video call before, you just need to get into a slightly different rhythm of there's always going to be that half-second delay. There's always going to be this kind of awkward silences. Like, that's fine, but don't, pile in expecting to be able to talk over each other like you maybe normally would. And maybe we tend to play Theatre of the Mind anyway, both on Dicebreaker and personally, but maybe if you're looking to go with something like Roll20, just take it easy at first. Don't try and use all the tools at once. Just maybe even have like another session 0 or have a short session where you have those allowances for people getting used to where they need to go on D&D Beyond, how they roll their dice, what they're looking at, that kind of thing. Just it is a very different kind of thing, and it can be quite difficult to adjust to. So just give people a little bit of leeway.
Yeah, definitely with your first session, probably just set it in like one location or something, and just like get people used to doing role play and also meeting each other's characters and kind of gauging the group dynamic. Because that means you don't need to make maps either. So that saves a lot of time, and people don't need to try and navigate maps.
There are now a lot of ways to digitally do maps, because there's Roll20, there's Tabletop Sim, there's that really nice looking one that's being developed. What's the
Roll?
Oh god, do you? No, not the Roll20 equivalent, but the one that is specifically for moving miniatures around and rolling dice.
Oh yeah. Oh
I
gosh, I
can't
can't remember
remember
the name of it.
It's really pretty though, and it looks quite slick. So that's another one that sort of, if you're the kind of player that likes playing with miniatures and dice, miniatures and maps, sorry, then there are a lot of aspects to that. But you will probably, especially for something like Roll20, which can be quite complicated, you will need to sit down and learn how to use them, and that will be a big roadblock. So if you are okay playing Theatre of the Mind, I would heartily recommend it, because it'll make your life a lot easier.
Yeah, there's just an element of kind of tying this all together. Like, just adjust your expectations. Like, it will still be fun. You'll still have a good time together, but it's not going to be the same experience. So I think pushing too hard for that, or expecting that, can kind of lead to disappointment and can kind of burn you out if you feel like you're not getting exactly the same out of doing it over video call as you do in the same room. It just is what it is. Like,
There are also like certain systems that work way better over video call than others. Like, you know, D&D. I can't have a D&D question without me recommending you play something else. But like, there's, you know, there are loads of games out there, and a lot of them actually work really well online. There's one that I probably shouldn't talk about because it's made by a friend, but like, you know, we previewed on the website, which is all about using a WhatsApp chat, and like there are games that actually use the fact that you are using a digital medium to enhance it. There's also, isn't there one called like this Discord server is haunted or something like that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That was by the. No, I'm getting confused with J Dragon. They Sleepaway. No, this Discord is haunted is a really good game to play online, because all you need is a Discord server.
You need a Discord server.
Yeah.
Clues in the name.
Yeah. I will also say that I generally don't like PDFs for things, because it's a pain in the butt to scroll through them. So D&D Beyond is helpful because it's just easily, it's easy to navigate. But if you're expecting to play a chunky thing, maybe if your players are able to, invest in a copy of the physical book each, if that's what they prefer, or, you know, just make reference sheets or some kind of guide, because it won't be as easy to just pass a book around or flick through it if you don't all have a copy.
If you also don't have a printer,
yes,
character sheets can really suck to put to try and fill in if they're PDF. Like some of them are form fillable, making it a little bit easier, but they're still not really that easy. And then you've got to have a really demanding PDF program open, which is kind of like a bit difficult for your PC to struggle with. So if you can't print things off, there are certain games and certain sites that have really good character sheets. So obviously D&D Beyond we already mentioned, but Blaze in the Dark has a really good Roll20 character sheet. Like, I think most of the Evil Hat ones do, actually. Evil Hat have really good interactive character sheets on Roll20. There's also Lancer, which has a whole dedicated website for the character sheets and stuff like that. So once again, games like those that have kind of dedicated web tools will make things a lot easier for you as well.
All right. I'll read this one from Alex. Other than the obvious D4, what component of any game would you least want to step on?
Oh, this is easy.
Go on then.
Tyranids.
Tyranids.
Honestly, have you ever put together a Tyranid army? Or like an orc army? They are covered in spikes.
Yeah.
Like the amount of like puncture wounds you come out with after trying to hold something together to glue it. Stepping on that thing I don't think I'd ever walk again.
Yeah, I think that's perfect, because there's also the added heartbreak of if it's a painted model and put together.
Yeah, you've broken it as well.
Yeah, you feel kind of emotionally, you know, pained as well as physically pained. So, yeah.
Anything particularly pointy? Maybe like, I imagine stepping on the pyramid in Camel Up might hurt quite a lot as well. Yeah. Just this a big D4, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, my poor feet of getting empathy pain. I'm just like, There's also like, you know, everyone always says the Lego brick is the worst thing to step on. There are entire Lego board games where the whole board is made of Lego. Imagine stepping on one of those.
Yeah, that's
Good
tough.
Lord.
I think there are much worse things than the Lego brick to step on, easily. Your example, for example, Wheels. Like, that would be much worse than the Lego brick, because it's all spiky. Anything that's got particularly harsh angles.
I think the thing about a Lego bricks is really sturdy. So like eventually the model would break under the weight of a human, but like the Lego brick, it just goes all the way up. You know,
and if
like,
you catch an edge as well, that's
God, yeah. That's why plugs are also bad.
Oh yeah,
plugs
are terrible.
Yeah, so it's just you might as well be impaled.
There's your answer. Don't step on a Tyranid.
In real life or in the fantasy of it. You know,
yeah. All right, Wills, would you like to read this last one from @Valenti Angai on Twitter?
Valenti
Apologies.
Angai, who says, "What do you feel are your personal formative board games?" I think for me it was probably Carcassonne. Carcassonne was the first one that. So I remember like it was a Christmas present from my brother, and he was like, "Oh my." You know, my mates at uni said this board game's amazing, because we used to play, because I played a lot of Risk as well. Risk was a pretty formative one for me, with my brothers. So he got that, and I was just like, oh, board games can be pretty good actually, and that was what sort of got me investigating and finding out about new things. And I think that's when I started actually looking at heavier ones. And I got Quantum, I think, was my first like proper big board game that I bought.
That's the
it was in like
space game?
It was like the Guardian's best board games of the year or something. The space, like sort of lightweight 4X game, which is really good actually. I really like Quantum.
Yeah. Meehan?
I've got a really bad memory when it comes to these sort of things. Like, I have like vague memory shifting around of some of the first board games I played, other than like your standard, Monopoly and whatever. Like, I think one of the first board games I was kind of introduced to as like, okay, this is a modern board game, and my friends at uni were quite big into the hobby, so they kind of introduced me to it. Was it was either Shadows Over Camelot, which is a co-op game where it's Arthurian, and you play as these knights trying to save Camelot from encroaching armies, but like one of the players can potentially be a traitor. I think we played it without the traitor to kind of make it more easy for me to get into it. Or it was Dead of Winter, maybe. I just remember
Dead of Winter was really early for me as well.
Yeah, I just remember playing Dead of Winter a lot back when I was first kind of getting into board games, because I've always enjoyed horror as a theme. So that was something that drew me in, but also because it can be a wholly co-op game, even though it's better to play with the traitors. It's a lot easier to get someone less experienced into the game by saying, okay, this is how we do this and everything. So yeah, it's probably either one of those. Mr. Jarvis.
Yeah, Dead of Winter for me as well was quite an early on one. I think I weirdly had a very similar kind of progression to you, Wills, where growing up I played Lord of the Rings Risk every summer with friends, like dozens of times. So yeah, and from there I then went on to kind of the classics, because I think I picked them up in Waterstones. It was Carcassonne, it was Catan, it was probably Ticket to Ride at some point. And from there, I then suddenly shot to the deep end of playing Eclipse a lot. So it was Eclipse, and then Betrayal, A House on the Hill. And the Resistance. I got really deep into the Resistance for a long time. And just social deduction games. But yeah, it was a similar kind of thing of Risk is not a great game, but there's enough of the kind of... I think it's different from something like Monopoly in that there is more strategy there, so you can kind of see the sketching of.
It's kind of like a hint at like, hey, there could be something here. Do you know what I mean? Like a sort of, it's very, very easy to pick up and just be like, okay, cool, that was fun. But then you're just sort of like, God, I've got an itch now for like something that's a bit more full of an experience than that, which I think is a good way of really just jumping into the deep end, like you said.
Yeah, but I think that's particularly the Resistance was one of those games where I didn't play Werewolf. Like, none of my friends played Werewolf or anything like that. And so when I played the Resistance, that was a real moment of like, wow, like board games can be, or like party games can be like this. And just that realization of like, it goes beyond the board, right? It's like you're kind of lying to each other for real. It kind of breaks those boundaries. Obviously it's all in the frame of a game, but it's very social. You're kind of, it's not just, I roll a die and see what happens. It's like I am in control of what I'm doing here. So yeah, I think there was a lot of that. And then at some point I veered off into Pathfinder for a while and played RPGs for a long time. But
there was also like a Rugrats board game that I had as a kid.
Wow.
It was great. And it was like, you had the little characters, but they were on like little ball bearings, and then it was like a slanted board, and you had to get them up, but they'd fall down, and it was really
there's like a classic game that's like that, like the big wooden, I can't remember what it's called. It sounds similar. Like, I can't think of what it's like. It's another thing like Crokinole, where it dates back hundreds of years, and it's more of kind of like a. It's more of a pastime than a board game.
Yeah, the Rugrats game.
Dates back hundreds of years. Yeah, one of the games that my mum brought up the other day was called Don't Tip the Waiter. And we used to play it a lot as kids. Not as in like money.
Oh,
tip.
don't make him fall over.
Yeah, no, it's not like we're sat there going, oh, service workers. No, it was the waiter was like balanced between these two. So their legs were like held up this part of their body that would swing, like with the change in balance. So they held like a plate, and you'd have to put food on it.
Oh god, it's like Buckaroo, but
Like I was about to say a bucking.
Yeah,
Bronco
it's like a
situation,
bucking bronco, but like you had to try and make sure that the plate was balanced enough so that the waiter didn't tip one way or the other. But Lord knows what's happened to that in my parents' house. Probably up with the Pokemon cards running away.
Pop-up pirate as well.
Yeah.
Was another formative one. Although finding out that it was the same slot every time that would pop the pirate up, and therefore just knowing never to go on the bottom of the barrel was what kind of broke that game after a while.
yeah. Oh, one came to mind, and now I've completely forgotten it. Oh, I feel like it's one of those weird things where, looking back, like I haven't played Carcassonne in ages, but I still think if someone offered it, I'd be like, oh, yeah, sure. Like, I'd go
I
back
played
to
it
that.
at Christmas, actually. Yeah, I played it with my partner at Christmas. So I was like, do you know what? Like,
It's all right.
I know this is a very easy game, but it's also really good. Like,
The one I was thinking of is the Lord of the Rings, the co-op game by Rainer Knizia, who I obviously didn't know at the time.
yeah.
But
So I owned that because we bought it. My family bought it. I feel like we had a very similar
yeah,
board
were
game
we
upbringing,
just
Matt, 'cause
actually the same person in different
maybe,
timelines?
who knows? It's that 3-county area. We're all the same people. But like we bought the Rainer Knizia Lord of the Rings game, and we're like, oh cool, it's the Lord of the Rings. And then I think we spent about 10 minutes reading the rules and just went,
Going,
and
who's
it just
Fatty
sat
Bolger?
in my house. Yeah, it just sat in my house for years, never been played. And I remember like going back and finding it, and I've got it here with me now. Like I found it, and I was like, "Oh, this is Rainer Knizia," because like then I knew who it was. I was like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah.
Like, I remember buying this and not knowing what it was.
Speaking of things to not tread on, we had like a running joke because it's just complete coincidence. It wasn't like we were doing it out of malice, but Fatty Bolger, the character piece for Fatty Bolger, kept getting trodden on. So he ended up being super glued back together about 6 times. So kind of had like slightly blobbed limbs where the super glue had to dry multiple times.
My one running joke that I use every time I introduce someone to that game is you can play as all your favorite hobbits from the film. You can play Frodo, Sam, Merry, Pippin, Fatty.
Yeah. we rewatched the extended editions of Lord of the Rings over the Christmas break, and Fatty Bolger does get a name check at the start of Fellowship, which I don't think I'd ever realised before, but I caught it. So it's just a one sentence pass off of someone saying, "Hey, Fatty," or something like that. Like,
Yeah, I mean they could have just been insulting someone.
It
was Fatty Bolger.
What set of parents is naming their child when they know full well that their surname is Bolger? Naming their child Fatty. That's just
I don't know, maybe they're just like letting them sort of, I don't know, they're owning it.
Maybe
the
they
Bolger
thought
identity.
it was like, this guy's well endowed. Maybe they were like, they were trying to give them like
don't
leg
go
up.
there. Right, Matt, what's going on
Good Lord.
with video and articles?
Have you seen my Fatty Bolger?
Oh no! You were supposed to help us steer away. You allowed it. You are feeding him.
This is the thing. People think, Matt's the dad. He'll bring it back in. He's just as naughty as the rest of us.
Well, that is all we've got time for this week. Well, almost all we've got time for. Wills, before we leave this behind us, please tell us what's coming up on the video side on youtube.com/Dicebreaker.
So you will be watching this on Friday or afterwards, but let's assume it's Friday for you. So on Wednesday we would have put up our Din Let's Play, the game that I was talking about at the start, and then the day before this goes live, we would have live streamed the Draw from Memory Community Challenge stream, which was an idea that we kind of hatched when we were just idly chatting. which is kind of a folk game that we're going to try out, which is going to be a lot of fun. But then on Saturday, which will be tomorrow, if you're watching this on the day it comes out, we are going to start our first episode of our Dungeon Breaker season break, where we are going to be playing Soulbound, the Warhammer Age of Sigmar fantasy RPG. And we've got a big tree, we've got an eel. It's going to be great. It's going to be fantastic. I'm going to be GMing for this one. It's going to be a lot of fun because I haven't GM'd in a little while. But yeah, that's going to be good. But then content to come, still to be decided. So after that, it's a mystery.
It's a mystery.
But obviously, we will be having Soulbound each week until we return to Dungeon Breaker. So look forward to that every Saturday.
I am looking forward to it, Wills. Even by the time people hear this, I will have already played it. But I'm excited to play that game, and I'm excited for you to GM again. It will be
you
a
are
good time.
an excellent storyteller.
Oh my! Thank you.
Coming up over on Dicebreaker.com. We have, by the time this goes out live, we'll have a review of the latest attempt to bring aliens to the tabletop, which is Another Glorious Day in the Core.
Finally.
A nice compact title. But we'll have a review of that. It sounds pretty good. There have been some good Aliens games, some not so good Aliens games, but this sounds like it falls into the former. So if you want a full read of that, go and check it out on the website. We also have, coming up in the next week or so, we'll have Matt Cox writing about chess, particularly after watching the Queen's Gambit, how he started to see chessboards floating on the ceiling and started to experience basically the Tetris effect, but for chess, which is a really good read.
Is Matt Cox the Queen's Gambit?
Big Matt Cox.
That's how it works, yeah.
He's the chess champion of the world.
So yeah, look forward to that. It was really interesting. Having not watched the Queen's Gambit, I could see a lot of kind of when you just fall in love with a game and that's all you see everywhere and it's all you want to play. So yeah, it's a really good read. We also have, coming up, well, this might be next week or it could be in the next few weeks, we have pieces on indie RPGs and maybe why you should consider playing something other than D&D in 2021. And how they can go beyond what you might expect from an RPG. We'll have pieces on the representation of disabilities in RPGs. We'll have Alex Meehan taking a look at some of the best board games that you can find right now.
Yeah.
Right now, this second, apart from that piece probably isn't live by now, but soon.
Immediately?
So yeah, look forward to that. And then we will have, of course, many more features, interviews, previews, reviews, and all that stuff on Dicebreaker.com. So go and check it out. But for now, that is this week's Dicebreaker podcast. Thank you for being here. Michael Wiz Whelan, Wikipedia.
Michael Wiz Whelan, Wikipedia.
I mean, after how we opened this
Michael
podcast.
the Wiz Kid Whelan. Yeah, thanks very much for having me.
Thanks for being here, Alex Meehan.
Beans!
All right.
Glorious bean.
I've been Matt Jarvis. Thank you for getting this far and suffering through with me until we return.
Don't lie, this has been our best episode yet.
Until we return next Friday with another episode of the Dicebreaker podcast. Stay safe out there, look after yourselves, enjoy some games, and have a lovely day. Bye.
Bye.